Hey everybody, this is Brian Yellow. On Origin Stories on Creativity number 41, I spoke with Andre Govier. He's a YA author, and he says he's working towards two things: combating literacy and combating Rett Syndrome. When he started out his literary career, he was very conscious that many people, especially young people, find big and complicated books a challenge, intimidating. So when he started his first story, The Liar Girl, he decided to write short first-person narratives. His target audience was teens and young adults, but he also found a lot of people in their 30s and 50s enjoy his stories also. He has been told that, they're very good for getting over a reading slump, and that's very novel. It's very important, getting people to read again. He says that people start reading his books, and they read other books, and they start buying books, and that's awesome for everybody. He does plan on publishing 2 more books in the series before Christmas. That's a complicated schedule to keep, especially being that his putting everything on hold for the summer. He's working on a book for charity. He's writing a book that all the profits will go to Living Like Livvy, which supports the charity that will reverse Rett. Now, Rett disease, Rett syndrome sounds like it's definitely a horrible syndrome. I included some links in the notes. Basically, it's basically a child starts reversing all their motor skills. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I understand 100% what this horrible syndrome is like. Check out the notes. There's a YouTube video there. I highly recommend taking a look at it. He basically has a fantastic story about how he just started to appreciate his daughters and what their health meant to him, and what the love of a father dealing with his own child's illness meant. He just dove in. It's very, very compelling. With no further ado, though, I'm going to let Andre tell a story.
Liar Girl is a story about a girl who is a compulsive liar, but she's not necessarily a bad person. It's set in Wales in the United Kingdom, and it's a girl who's 16 years old, which is in the last year of mainstream school in the UK, and she basically tries to keep everybody happy, her friends, family, but she keeps sort of double booking herself and needing to be in 2 places at once, or changing her plans but not liking to cancel people. So she starts telling little lies, but then she ends up telling bigger lies to cover her lies, and she makes herself a bit of a mess, and it becomes a bit suspenseful because you don't know which one she's going to get away with and which one she doesn't get away with.
So this is a trilogy that you have started with Liar Girl and then Liar Girl, the exam results. So is a 3rd one coming too, or is it just a series?
There will be a 3rd and a 4th.
A 3rd and a 4th. That's interesting. 2016 and 2017. And you have co-authors too.
Well, the co-authors were my proofreaders and editors. I'm very lucky to have my oldest daughter is a real grammar anorak, and so is her boyfriend.
Okay.
They did a lot of work helping with the editing, because they said, Dad, you write like a 44-year-old.
I'm the same way. My wife is my editor, actually. I wouldn't be able to do anything without her.
Yeah, because I'm trying to write as a 16-year-old girl wasn't really my strongest talent. One of the reasons why I started writing these books was because I read an article of when young people download books on Kindle, 90% of them don't actually get read, and I thought that's crazy.
Yeah, the longer the book is, the less likely they are to finish it. I was reading through your bio here on Amazon. You said something like that.
Yeah. So I thought there was an author, Sue Townsend, who used to write first-person narrative books about a teenager who had a diary. I really liked her style of books when I was a teenager, so I thought I'd write a first-person narrative about a liar, so that you didn't really know whether she was getting away with the lies or not because it was a first-person narrative and things were happening that weren't in her presence, and you had to sort of guess whether that was happening or not.
That's interesting. So there's like an element of anxiety to it. Does she think she's getting away with it throughout the entire thing?
To a point. Then obviously she realizes brings to the contrary that she's not quite getting away with things. She gets betrayed quite a lot by technology.
In terms of what?
Telephones.
In terms of not being able to read emotions and faces and voices.
Telephones can give you away, and other things. Without spoiling the book too much, technology catches her out quite a lot.
Lying is a fascinating subject matter in terms of language. Where did you do your research?
Human beings and people, and at my age, some of them are lies that I've known people have actually told, and some of them I've sort of reinvented and joined characters and taken bits of people that I know, and some are totally fictional. And there's no element of the person in some parts of it whatsoever. But yeah, a lot of these
reading. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. You go ahead. I interrupted you.
I remember reading. I don't remember. I say this all the time, and I'm probably confusing a quote. I remember reading how a lot of human communication is based on lies, the body language and how you assert yourself verbally. It's just hiding what the truth is, the kernel of whatever it is you're protecting. Did you find that through your research that a lot of what we're saying publicly is protecting what we really want to say?
I think a lot of people lie because they don't want to hurt people's feelings. They don't realise the consequences. Rather than say, actually, can I cancel this because I've got a better offer? They'll come up with this disaster's happened. Sorry, can't meet you.
Yeah.
They make polite excuses, hoping that they won't be found out for all sorts of scenarios. And that's the gist of this particular lie. She's not nasty or malicious, and sometimes she's trying to do someone a favour and sticking up for them and making excuses for them without giving too much away. But she ends up making her friends' lives a lot worse
a lot worse, and her own life a lot worse too. I would imagine.
Yeah, by trying to do a good thing, she's causing chaos. In the first book, it's more funny. In the second book, she takes it to a new level, and it becomes pretty nuclear. She really does take it to a nuclear level of being in trouble.
So does the character learn, or does it just continue to add heat to the fire, logs to the fire, sticks to the fire, whatever the cliche is?
No.
She never learns. It's just that would be the purpose of the continuing series, huh?
Yeah, it wouldn't be a book 3 and 4 she'd learn.
I mean, not knowing what the stories, how the progression works. I mean, I imagine she goes into politics and eventually the lies increase to the point where she's like Prime Minister of England and has her finger on the button or something along those lines.
Well, she tells lies for failing to be at places, but the trouble is people try and help her out. And there's one part where she stood a friend up because she's got a new boyfriend that she wants to go and see, and she's told a friend that her hot tub's leaking and the house is flooded, and she's helping her mum clean up this flood upstairs, and she hasn't even got a hot tub. And her friend gets her mum, and they get a taxi, and they go and get a vax machine and carpet cleaner and all this equipment and go around to help muck in and clean up this flood. And there's no flood there whatsoever, and she's oblivious to this out with her new male interest. She comes home to a rather angry friend and friend's mother.
You know what I found very interesting? You said this a little while ago, the language usage that you tried to build within the novel itself. You utilized your daughter Hannah's help, the 16-year-old verbology, verbiage. Can you explore that a little bit with me? How did you use the 16-year-old language as a tool within this knowledge to kind of get into that world, that mindset?
Well, I wrote it as how I would say it, and basically Hannah and her boyfriend looked at lots of things and said a teenager would never say that, and they said they would say this, or
can you give us an example?
Yeah, one of the examples was when she's being told off by a father and trying to be motivated and saying, she doesn't really want to go to college, and she's saying education opens doors. And she's in the way that she's replying, she's saying, well, teenagers wouldn't say education opens doors, and some of the phrases are probably my own speech rather than how teenagers might speak, or it might be how I would have spoken as a teenager, which is a bit different to how we are now.
Yeah.
We speak differently both sides of the pond as well. There's phrases in our language in the UK which are very common, which in America are sort of, what does that mean? And I've learned a couple of very subtle differences that I wasn't aware of, which are very important that I address when I do my next book. There's a couple of adjectives and I didn't realise were used very commonly over here that aren't in America. Which luckily, one of the people who picked up my book and read it was a university English teacher who is offered to proofread my next book to make sure that there's no idiosyncrasies and differences between the language, UK English, and the American audience.
But why would you want to make it the same from English to American? Isn't the joy of having an English author be an English author? I mean, wouldn't want it to, you don't want to blend it. You want to have that language be your language, not.
Yes, but I think some of the laziness in how we in the UK write English is actually
beautiful. I love it. I love talking to you guys too, because it gives me, added flavor to my own language.
Yeah, but I think some of our laziness is actually incorrect, and we get picked up on it by people who stick to the original language the way it actually was. So there's one phrase in my book where I've used the sentence when she's talking about the main character's mother, and it says she sat in the doorway. She was and she sat basically talking about where she was sitting at the time, and the correct version of it, you would say she is sitting in the doorway, or she was sat in the doorway, but you wouldn't say she sat. Strictly and being correct, the Americans, I tend to think, are much more strictly to the rules, and in the UK, we're sort of very lazily have sort of slipped away from some of those things.
Another example for that, in my experience, hospital. An English person wouldn't say the hospital. I'm going to the hospital. You'll say going to hospital. And for the longest time, that endeared me to an English person speaking. I just loved it so much. And you would say something along the lines of "in it," like this is a nice suit in it. And I love that so much. You're skipping certain things, and I want to fill in those certain things that you're skipping. No, like similarly, I would say I'm going to church. You wouldn't say I'm going to the church. I'm going to church, and you're using that same thing for the hospital. I'm going to hospital.
It's another example. They're just more excellent examples of how in the UK we've become lazy with our own language.
It's beautiful though, isn't it? I mean, you've taken, it's your language and you've made it more efficient in a way.
Yeah, it's good, but it means that other people will get the red pen out when they look at our books across.
You know what? Their red pen, they can put it someplace else if they want. I don't know. I like it. I really do. And I wish, that person who wants to complain about your language usage in terms of, your 16-year-old character, do they necessarily have to be right? because your 16-year-old character is being true to their neighborhood and the way they're being, you know, their culture. And that 16-year-old's not going to have a culture in this country, my country, you know,
Yeah,
New York.
yeah. I mean, she's a 16-year-old whose exam results haven't gone marvellously. She was and perhaps she won't be grammatically perfect either. Then.
I think, isn't that important as a
Yeah.
writer? Don't you want to be true to the person that you're writing about, that first person narrative? She's not going to be the one going to Harvard who's really concerned with potentially being perfect. She's
Yeah.
lying. She's a storyteller, and she's
Yeah.
not being very concerned about whether her story adds up. She's trying to get away with it. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I just want it to also feel very a comfortable, easy read because it's. I can quite confidently say every person I know that's picked it up has read it in one sitting and not put it down because they are quite short. And most times they've picked up the second one and done the same thing straight away. And I like that I've written it in a language, and because the first person narrative that makes it flow, it almost flows as one event.
So I'm sorry, did you say that the second one's in third person?
No, first person narrative as well. Yeah, and the whole series will be first person narrative, so that there's no jumps in location. Everything happens with the main character, either her thoughts, what she says, what she sees, or
Just to go back into that
she
language usage as well, didn't J.K. Rowling kind of do the same thing where English, I'll use your usage, the laziness of English usage was kind of a reoccurring theme, you know, with the Inuits and whatever have yous?
I think she's made comments and she's talked about the differences, but I say being here all the time, I don't really notice it.
Exactly.
I only really notice it when your American authors and people who are grammatically very experienced point it out to me because you just become oblivious to it.
Does it make you upset that they're what would make me upset? This is my language, I would think you would think to yourself. Or does it?
No, not at all. It's every day's school day.
That's true, honestly. That's a really mature way to look at it. Every day is an opportunity to learn and become better.
Yeah. I like to because to me these it's my next book. It's the next book which is the one that's really important to me, and I would hate to put 6 months worth of work into that one and it'd be remembered for its poor English rather than the actual subject matter, which is the important thing. So I'm conscious I want to get that one right. I don't want it to be talked about for its poor adjectives and the odd missing word because of our lazy language.
Did you ever read, do you know the movie Trainspotting by chance?
I do know the movie Trainspotting, which has got the worst toilet in Glasgow, is the bit I remember.
This is the worst scene ever. But the book that's based on was written in like phonetically correct, I don't know correct, but phonetic Scottish Edinburgh accent. It's the most incredibly difficult book I've ever picked up and tried to read. But once you like get into your mindset that you're actually reading a Scottish accent, it like starts to flow. And, you know, in terms of grammatically correct, it's probably 100% wrong, but it's beautiful at the same time. I don't know. I love the subtleness.
That's a good comparison. I haven't really thought about it like that.
I just think you have to, in terms of your character being 16 years old, I think you owe her a debt of where she's from, especially she's talking in her own voice. If she's from America, then she talks like an American. If she's from Yorkshire, she talks like a Yorkshirean. I don't know. What do you call somebody from Yorkshire?
Well, she's from Wales, actually. My book's set in
Wales.
North Wales. I've got a little static caravan just outside Brill in North Wales. So my book's actually set there.
How close is Wales to Yorkshire? Is it relatively or very far?
120 miles. So it's a couple of hours.
But you find, but you obviously are aware there's a connection between your English audience and your American audience as well. And
Oh,
obviously,
definitely.
this is a story that should resonate not only with a UK audience but with an American audience too.
Yeah.
Lying,
Yeah.
lying is a subject matter that can affect both teenagers no matter where you are.
Yeah. Yes. I have since. I did apply with the website. I'm sure I won't mind mentioning ACX to have an audiobook created, and I that primarily recruits American actresses,
Oh yeah.
and I got a few applications, but I wanted a Welsh accent, and none of them Americans really sounded very Welsh. And in a month, I only had two or three, and none of them really sounded like the person I wanted to bring the books to life. So it's actually an 80-year-old relative of mine suggested, why don't you put it on Facebook that you want an actress? So I joined these, I think you call them yard sale groups over there. We call them for sale or swap sites. And I joined three little towns in North Wales at Prestatyn, Rhyl and Llandudno. And I put an advert on, actress needed to narrate audiobook. And within 20 minutes, I had 30 applications, and within 2 days,
Wow, that's pretty cool.
I got 600.
Did any of them fit the bill?
Oh, lots. I got 600 altogether. I spent 2 days listening to them.
Wow.
It was a great marketing technique because what I did was I made a script which was the first few pages in the book, and then I'd send them that as a PDF. I sent them some instructions of how to use an iPhone to record a voice memo, and then you can email the voice memo. So I was receiving lots of emails with voice memos attached to listen to. And I spent 2 days listening to the same 4 or 5 pages being read repeatedly.
How much do you love those 4 or 5 pages now?
I do like them, but I did consciously not look at any of the photographs or Facebook. Because I wanted
the photos,
to,
you mean?
Yeah, sometimes people sent me their name or they sent it via Facebook Messenger, the sound recording to me.
Yeah.
I didn't want to see anyone's face. I wanted to judge purely by. And one of the ladies that sent me it was meant to sound like a 60-year-old girl. I looked afterwards when I'd heard the voice and decided whether they were good or not. One was actually a grandmother.
Oh, no way.
And she did sound about 20, to be honest. She was actually one of the good ones. I had more than 6 who were professionals, and I chose one who's a 17-year-old from Rhyl, a really, really talented young actress who's done a lead role in quite a few productions, called Annie Rose Williams, and we've now recorded the first 2 books. The second one's in the production stage. It's going to be on iTunes and Amazon.
So that's fantastic. Now, these people who are reading your book, they're putting that spin on it, the language spin.
Yes,
right.
She has got the exact accent from Rhyl because that's where she's born and bred. She sounds exactly how I want to do it. I'm going to do something similar with my next book, which is about the Rett charity. I'll find a lady from the Midlands of the UK, from Birmingham, Wolverhampton area, who's got the right accent to tell.
Let me ask you about your charity book. Is that a fiction also, or are you actually writing a? Well, let me ask you exactly. What is that book exactly? Let me say exactly like 4 more times, and then I'll let you go ahead and talk. What is that book? Is it fiction or is it nonfiction?
Sadly, it's nonfiction. It's a true story. I wanted to. I contacted the charity for Reverse Rett, and I asked them to find me a family who had gone through the whole Rett Syndrome drama from start to finish. Somebody who was really articulate, who's had time to recover from their ordeal, who's prepared to talk about it. It's the story of a mother who had a little girl who was perfectly healthy until she was 18 months old. She had two older daughters, and she afterwards, in the 18 months, had a fourth daughter. When the third daughter was 18 months old, she realised something was terribly wrong, because one day she went from being a normal, happy, walking, talking, eating child to screaming from morning till night, and only stopping screaming when she was exhausted. She lost all eye contact, communication, response. Then she got misdiagnosed with some other conditions. A lot of this poor lady's family and friends fell out with her and said, that's just a naughty child having a tantrum, you should smack her. And she lost people who didn't. She stopped being invited out, shall we say, with the ladies who do lunch because of this, her daughter. But she knew that it wasn't behaviour, it was medical. But it took her 4 years to get a diagnosis. She went through a long phase where the little girl was having 100 fits or more a day, sometimes 120 a day. And she was diagnosed with global learning difficulties, severe epilepsy, and she really had a real struggle. In the same time, they had other issues that were going on. She got robbed and beaten up, and she had her own health issues. A seizure.
So like she seizes, like shakes and like kind of almost you have to.
Yes, shaking can cause with Rett. It's very common to stop breathing when you have these seizures as well. You pass out. It's like fainting, shaking, and frequently either turn blue from lack of oxygen or pass out.
But it can like look like a tantrum or something from the perspective of another parent.
It can look like an epileptic fit.
Okay.
But the fact that it happens so often, and that is just one tiny symptom of Rett. So it's a story of how they struggle with getting a diagnosis. Well, they also had some other terrible things going on in their lives as well. And then it is the story about once they got the diagnosis, how they coped with it and they managed to build the best life that they could for this little girl. And she ended up doing ice skating, rock climbing, and abseiling, all from a wheelchair.
Wow.
She knew, just because she had Rett, she didn't know when she wasn't enjoying herself. And she knew what she liked and what she didn't like. Just because she couldn't talk or walk doesn't mean to say she didn't want a wheelchair putting down a cliff and dragging up a cliff and putting in a canoe and going on the water. And she actually got whizzed around the ice skating rink in the Midlands every week by an Olympic ice skater, because she absolutely loved flying around, faster the better. She certainly lived life to the full. She was obsessed with the footballer Steven Gerrard. She was a real character. Sadly though, what does happen with Rett is many of them don't live to be very old. And when she was 9 years old, one morning they got up and found that Livvy had passed away in the night. And it's about, as well, some of the picking up the pieces. And then this lady has then gone on to make a bit of a career of fostering the unfosterable children, the ones who would never get a home, who are severely handicapped and poorly. And I'm going to use my book as evidence for a nomination for a Pride Britain Award.
For her, for the mother.
Yeah. I was thinking the mother, but I think really the whole family. The fathers equally had to make sacrifices, and it's not a one person. It's not a one person thing. She's needed his support. I think as a couple they deserve some recognition.
Can you tell me what the end of life is like for somebody with Rett?
Everyone's totally different. At some point they'll lose their speech. They'll lose their walking. That's usually soon after the 18-month point. Sometimes it's because the bones become weak and the organs fail because the body can sort of crush their own organs. Many of them, it might be another infection, a pneumonia or a flu that can take them. It might be a seizure that can take them. Sometimes they just go to sleep and don't wake up.
It's sudden.
As a Rett parent, you will always be grateful for your child waking up every day. Every day is a blessing. And what is also quite frustrating for Rett parents is people think that Rett syndrome has something to do with the condition Tourette's, which is a condition of compulsive swear. It's nothing to do with that whatsoever. It's something that only affects girls. Boys don't get it. And it's something which the UK government gives zero money for because it is such a rare condition. Whereas quite a few celebrities and there's a lot of people do crazy things every week and have events and parties and fundraising and walk Land's End to John O'Groats in the UK and jump out of airplanes and do daft stuff every week to raise money for research. And I know that the American government has given a lot of money towards research that's being done over here as well. But the UK government hasn't matched that in any shape or form. But the reason why I got into it was my own daughter when she was 14, whose face is actually on the cover of my book. My own book. She's the face on my LIGO books. When my daughter was 14, she had a phone contract, and it was the name of the contract was I won't name the phone company. It was unlimited texts. So send as many texts as you want to your friends, and she sent 7,700 one month. We got a bill of £580, which is about $700, which is quite a lot for a teenager's phone bill. And she'd done it twice actually. Her older sister had covered up for her and paid it for the first month. When she did it again, her older sister couldn't pay for this, and so obviously we got this phone bill, and we had a month of feeling a bit poor, and we had to eat some beans on toast that month, and had a bit of a moan about it as you would any dad who got such a huge phone bill. And then I went to watch rugby with my friend every Sunday, and I'm stood talking to him about this phone bill, and my friend's got a daughter with Rett syndrome who at the time was about 11, and I'm thinking, he's always happy, he never moans, he's got his daughter in a wheelchair, we're watching the match and he's having to feed her a chip at a time and he's looking after her and he loves his daughter to pieces. He's got Rett syndrome. She'll never send him a text message, she'll never say she loves him, she'll never even be able to wave at him. If she smiles, he won't know it's really a smile. And I'm moaning about a phone bill, and I thought, this is so trivial. I felt, it sort of gave a lot of perspective. A phone bill was a bad month, but it made me decide that I was going to do something to help the condition Rett syndrome. I couldn't really write my book about him because it's a bit close to home because he's a friend I've known for a lot of years.
Yeah.
But I did do a walk with him and some other friends each year from Liverpool to Leeds to raise money. But then, as his daughter now gets older, really his time should be spent with her because every day is precious. He doesn't want to be walking, 2 training days a week and then doing this 4-day walk. He wants to spend every day possible with his daughter, so I decided to do the book instead to raise awareness. Trouble is, the reality is most of the people doing the fundraising for Rett syndrome are actually parents who've got kids that they want to spend the time with.
Yeah.
It's not actually, I'm blessed with 2 healthy daughters, but it's usually the mothers and fathers who are going home and having to do 24 nursing care with their child with Rett, who have then also thrown themselves out of planes and going doing obscenely long walks and running marathons and similar. So that is how I got into the condition, really. It was my daughter's huge phone bill, giving me a bit of a reality check about what's important in life, and phone bills aren't important.
Just put things in perspective, doesn't it? I've got 2
Absolutely.
children. It amazes me that they could have been born in a way that
But when they come
my
to
life
you,
and
when they come to you with a $700 phone bill one day, just remember, don't worry, that's trivial.
That's trivial in comparison. Or when my son throws his tantrums because he wants his mother and not me.
Yeah.
That's our current thing right now, is that he wants his mother and not me. It's potatoes, I guess, on the thing, in a way. So tell me, what are we doing with this book, our charity book on Rett? Are we releasing it soon? Has it been finished? What is our marketing plan for it? What are we going to do with it?
What I do every month is I have a 2 or 3 hour conversation with Sarah Medvedev, who was Livvy's mother, who lives in Walsall in the Midlands. I've been down to see her a couple of times, but I do usually do it by phone and I record it. And then from that, I am writing the book and doing some other research around the condition and treatments as well. But I'm keeping it to a first person narrative.
Yours or hers?
No, it's her. It's her story.
Her narrative. Okay.
I'm writing it as her. So I am also restrained because of what she's done afterwards. She's got another child that she's looking after now, which she's fostered, who's got severe brain damage, who is very time consuming of her time. And she also has a 2-year-old that she's been fostering, and she's now just adopted last month, who's got cerebral palsy, no glands, severely diabetic, and he's also blind. So her hands are quite full, as well as having 3 daughters of her own. So trying to get a couple of hours with her isn't always something. It takes a little bit of planning. And also because the subject matter is so distressing for her, I can't rush her. But optimistically, I'm hoping to have it out end of September.
End of September.
That's my plan. Yeah.
So basically, you have geared your entire career around, your writing career around parenting in one form or another.
So far, yes.
Is that going to be continuing? Do you find yourself writing about being a father, about being a parent going forward? Do you have, what is your aspirations as an author after you finish your first person narrative about being a Rett parent, about being I mean, now talking about Liar Girl, I know it's definitely a endeavor writing a trilogy or even a series like this, but I mean, writing what you're writing right now has got to feel so good. What do you hope to do with the future?
I think I haven't decided. I'd like to do something totally different.
Does it make Liar Girl feel trite? I mean, how do you feel about what you've done? And now I listen to you talk about this horrible syndrome and the power of, the power that you speak of it with and what you're hoping to accomplish. I mean, I almost feel like you don't want to return back to this series and you want to be doing something else with your time. Is that true, or am I just making that up?
I would like for the Rett Syndrome book to make plenty of money for the charity Reverse Rett, and if it does that, then hopefully to raise awareness. There is a huge portion of this planet where Rett Syndrome exists, and I'm sure there's zero diagnosis whatsoever.
I would imagine, yeah.
And I would like to have my book about Rett Syndrome available, and it's in plain speak English, available across the globe. My first 2 books, LIGO books, I've had translated into Chinese, and they are now in the marketing phase. The translation's being done, all the typesetting's being done, and there's just in the marketing promotion phase for release for sale in China, where a lot of people speak English. And there's a market for easy read English books, so I'm going to put both versions under the same cover in China through the company Fiber Read. And maybe I might do the same with my Rett Syndrome book as well. It's quite a slow process.
Yeah.
To get it done. It's taken me 4.5 months to get the translation and typesetting done for those 2 books.
And that was through Fiber Read. Why did it take so long?
Well, you're at the mercy. First of all, you need to get a project manager through FiberRead who then puts adverts out for translators. And they used 7 translators from the first book. 4 of them were Chinese, 3 of them were, well, they had Western names. I don't know if they were UK or US. And then they spent a couple of months translating the book. And then it goes to typesetting, and then they go through the making up. They want your original artwork photographs so they can make a Chinese version of your cover. And then they have 4 to 6 weeks of advertising period before they release it. So that's why it does tend to go on. And I imagine my next book, the Rett book, being thicker, the translation stage will take it even longer. And but I would like to put it into the Asian market as well.
Yeah, obviously everything. How have they responded to your Liar Girl? Or I'm sorry, did you already say that's been released there, or it's on its way to being released there?
It's in the advertising phase. The only thing I can say is I keep receiving emails in Chinese and keep getting friend requests from Chinese people on my, follows on my social media pages. But unfortunately, I can't answer any of them because I don't understand what they're saying.
That's interesting. That's interesting. You're interesting. I really appreciated this conversation. You made me sad though. I don't want to leave this conversation under a dark cloud. I keep thinking about MS too, muscular dystrophy and all that horrible stuff that doesn't seem like there's any hope for. And Rett makes me feel like, I mean, is there a cure? Is there hope? I know we talked about before we got on the call that there's a cure for mice.
Yeah,
what have they done for mice?
They have proved that there is a cure. It's a very tiny genetic defect, and they have managed to reverse the condition in mice, and they are moving towards clinical trials. So the actual day-to-day progress of it I've not got with me, but it is something that is moving incredibly close to actually being curable. It will be the first ever neurological condition that can be cured in humans. I have no doubt about it.
Gibbons.
Fact.
Well, crossing my finger, because that sounds horrible for the child. 18 months, man, that was like a good age. Crawling around, flipping around, walking. Man, my kids were absolutely crazy at that age.
Yeah, that's the normal age. Livvy was a bit exceptional. She actually didn't have her aggression for 22 months, which is unusual. But because of that, her aggression was much more violent. It was much more because she had so much further back to fall. Because she developed normally to 22 months and then went straight to 0. It was an even bigger shock for them. But hopefully I'm going to raise plenty of money with this book, and hopefully if people follow me on my Twitter, Andre Govier, they'll get details of it when it is released, and it'll raise awareness worldwide, not just in the UK and US, who sort of seem to be leading the way with Rett, but hopefully across the rest of the planet as well. And then when it's done, I shall go back to finishing my young adult literature books, because that's also been a bit of a passion, is to get people to enjoy reading. That was my whole motive for doing writing in the first place. I've got one daughter who's really an anorak and never has a book out of her hand, and one daughter who's never been really a book reader. She just doesn't want to pick up something massive like the Da Vinci Code, and she enjoyed the first book and she enjoyed the second book, and then the next day she went on Amazon and ordered 14 books to get delivered. And I thought that's worked. That's done exactly what I wanted her to do. She just ordered them, she read them, and I thought that's done. That's why I wrote these books, because I wanted people to start reading. She still reads now.
That's fantastic. Reading is fantastic. I used to read when I was a kid. I was one of those kids that always had a book in his hand. But I did want to ask you one other question about the UK universal healthcare. I thought you guys were hooked up. What do you mean they won't pay for Rett disease or Rett syndrome?
The research into the condition and finding a cure for it. As far as I'm aware, the UK government gets zero money. If they get any, I bet it's not enough to buy a small frozen chicken.
Oh, you mean like they're not researching genetic? They're not researching the gene that'll help cure it. But they're getting help.
They're not being funded by the UK government.
I see.
It's all being funded by people doing crazy charity events and making huge personal sacrifices, endless, continuous amounts of auctions and coffee mornings and fairs, sponsored walks, writing books can be added to that, parachute jumps, bungee jumps, cycling length of the UK and blah, 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 blah. But every weekend, a whole group of parents, normally associated with one child with Rett, because there's not tens of thousands of these. It's a small community. Mm-hmm. But every weekend, a family and their friends will do some crazy, stupid, physically incredibly arduous activity to raise money, and that is what's driving this research. And likewise in the US as well, there is a huge number of families and friends of each child who've got Rett who work tirelessly to drive this research, which is being carried out at leading universities and medical centres around the world. But it is essentially driven and financed on the whole by crazy parents doing crazy things and their crazy friends. Although the American government, I am aware, has given substantial amounts of money towards it. I'm not aware that the UK government ever did, but sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was Barack Obama.
What is it?
I think it was during Barack Obama's period that he made a donation of at least $450,000 and then $500,000 afterwards, which might not seem a huge amount, but compared to what the UK government gave, it's a lot.
I don't know. My comment was going to be on the fact that erectile dysfunction is got all the attention in the world, and then something like this horrible syndrome affecting children gets no attention at all. You know what I mean? Some nasty situation where it doesn't need any attention gets all the attention, and something that actually needs attention doesn't get any at all. Why? Because a child has no money in its pocket and an adult has all the money in the world and all the insurance. It's a crooked world, and I just find it very, very sad.
Its blessing is its such curse. Its blessing is the fact it's such a rare condition, and it is less than 1 in 10,000. But that's equally its curse, because cancer might hit 1 in 3, whereas Rett is less than 1 in 10,000. That is, that's the math. It's a simple case of mathematics.
Somebody's suffering, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just somebody's suffering. It's just unfortunate.
Absolutely.
And it's not just one person. It's not just the little girl. And I imagine her suffering is amazing, but the parents are suffering. Her siblings are suffering. You're suffering. The suffering is growing. And
can I just highlight whilst this book is gritty, it's hard, and then it's hard. It's the most gritty story possible of difficulty and human emotional adversity. It is not a book about disability. It's also a book about ability. There are girls who've got Rett who do the most amazing things, and some of the things that she achieved in her life, despite not being able to walk, talk, and there's some comedy in there as well.
Yeah,
which might seem there's a lot of comedy when everyone else is breaking down and distraught. I'll give you an example. At the end of the 4 years, when they went to West Midlands Children's Hospital, and they finally had the blood tests and the blood culturing that confirmed this, although they'd seen 9 out of the 10 symptoms and they suspected it was going to be Rett before then, they always thought that the head wasn't smaller than it should be. So they'd always hung on to that lifeline that it might not be Rett. And when they came out of the hospital, they sat in the car with Livvy on the back seat, mum and dad, and they just broke down at that point, because all possible hope of it not being Rett had now gone. And Dad's thumping the steering wheel. He's absolutely as distraught as could possibly be. And Livvy's laughing her head off. She's having an absolute giggling fit of Mum and Dad laughing and being distraught in the front. And she's laughing her head off, and she found the whole thing totally hilarious because her world hadn't changed in the last hour. Her world was still the same as it was an hour before. You know, it's just Rett is just another noise to her. It's a word, and her life wasn't going to change. It wasn't going to change her life. And it's quite funny the way that she reacts to things which most people would, you know, find a shocking and sad situation. She was a proper little character. There was another moment where the family had been called in and they were told you need to be coming and saying goodbyes because she'd been having so many fits and seizures, but she was so weak that the hospital had warned Mum that she's going to pass away. So they had to make those difficult, frantic phone calls and get everybody in, and they were going to put her into an induced coma. And put her on a ventilator machine because she was so weak. And the anaesthetist that came in was a very young-looking fellow with long blonde hair. I'd describe him as a surfer dude. He'd lost his surfboard. And Livvy took one look at him who'd come in, and she starts winking at him and fluttering her eyelids at him, and you know, she can't speak to him and she can't get up to him, but she's actually flirting with the anaesthetist who's coming to put her under. And, you know, after half an hour, he said, look, I can't put a child under into a coma who's flirting with me and giggling at me. And it gave her like a stay of execution, and instead they transferred her to a specialist unit and it actually totally changed the whole path of her treatment. And it went from really, you know, being right on the cliff edge. It pulled her back because she started flirting with the anaesthetist. Because I think her opportunities to communicate might have disappeared had that event not happened. But it's not all about doom and gloom. There are some life-changing, funny moments in that book as well.
And you know what else for me?
About ability.
That this little girl also had in her life as well. She wrote a novel through you. She earned hundreds of thousands of dollars for the research of her illness. You know, she also walked thousands and thousands of miles through many people's feet. She did so many things that so many people could only dream of, and that's an awesome life.
Yeah, she's not only done a lot to raise money for Rett Syndrome, but on the email I sent you, there is she has her own charity as well called Livvy Smile, which raises. Reverse Rett is about finding a cure for Rett Syndrome, but she also has her own charity called Livvy Smile, which is about raising money for fun days out and helping families of children with all disabilities, not just Rett Syndrome, to help all disabled children. So yeah, she's left an amazing legacy.
And man, I think that's the highlight of this whole conversation. Honestly, I wish we had let off with it, but honestly, I really enjoyed hearing about your novels too. But that's where we're at. I mean, do you have anything else you want to add to basically Liar Girl or your Rett work, the work that you've done with Rett?
I would love it if people followed Govier on social media so that when the Rett book, Living Like Livvy, comes out, they buy it, support it, share it, to help raise money and awareness for this great cause. But also, if you have any young people, teenagers who don't pick up a book and should read a book, or you want to get people back into reading. In fact, more people have picked up my book who've been over 40 than under 40. There's a lot of fellas pick it up and say, it takes me back to my school days. But if you know someone who's on a reading slump or wants to get back into a love of reading, it's a really good tool to make people fall in love with reading books. So Liar Girl is it's available in quite a lot of different places, but probably the easiest is Amazon, and then it can come to your door.
Literacy, Rett, parenting, It's like you're the most altruistic writer I've ever had on this program, and I really appreciated talking with you. I leave with a few questions. What are you reading right now?
I've got a book about joining the British Army in the 1980s called Picking Up the Brass.
Interesting.
It's hilarious.
Is it? That was an interesting time to join the British Army. Where it covers the Falkland Islands, or?
No, it's about being a boy soldier at an army apprentice college.
Oh, interesting. Could you send me a link to it if you can remember? I like stuff like that.
Yeah, yes, it's very, very funny.
And what would you recommend to people who want to write?
Who want to write?
Find their soul on paper.
I'll try and give you my 60-second tip on how to write.
Please.
How to write a book. First of all, I get a big piece of paper, an A4 sheet, an A3 sheet, and write down my events, not necessarily in the right order, about what I want to include in this book. Ideally, you want to start, a middle, and an end, and then your events. Then I get a page of paper, and I do like a CV of each character, name, description, relationship to the other characters, for each character, so I can see how everybody links in. Then I get an A4 pad, and with my events and with my characters, I put a couple of words at the top of each page. Not necessarily chapterizing it, but I put what's going to happen, and I have my sort of order of events of how my book's going to go, start to finish. Even if I've just got one word, such as trip to the cinema, first day at school, breakfast with mum and dad, that is what I put at the top of the page. And this is the next important bit, because if you don't do this, I don't think you ever finish a book. Write it out. Don't be worrying about grammar, spelling mistakes, epsilons and commas and colons in the wrong place. Just blast it out. Don't worry what it looks like. And get the book written out, because if you don't do that bit, you will never finish it. If you beat yourself up trying to be perfect on every sentence and every page, you'll get writer's block and you'll stop, and your own standards will stop you completing. And once you have finished it, you can go through and do your first edit yourself, and then you need a friend who's honest with you, tells you whether it's enjoyable, and you need a friend who's a grammar anorak who will pull you up and correct it, correct your spellings and do that legwork for you. And the only other thing I'd say is avoid a vanity publisher. Find someone who's an indie publisher to advise you about how to get your book out there once you've done it, before you start shelling out any money, because there's lots of ways you can do it for free.
Totally great advice. Where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Andre Govier, and also on Facebook. I have an author's page which is also called Andre Govier. The picture on my profile is keep calm and read a book.
Keep calm, read a book. Fantastic. And I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I will fill out the notes on the YouTube page with as much information as I possibly can from what you sent me in the last email that we had with each other. Man, thank you so much for the good work that you're doing for literacy, for Rett, for parents everywhere. I really appreciated this conversation. You're a really, really good guy.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Brian, really enjoyed it myself.
Thank you, sir.
And maybe I can revisit you when I actually publish the book.
Yeah, 100%. Shoot me an email whenever you want. We'll get you back on the show immediately. And if I happen to catch you publishing without, I'll send you an email. But you have an open invitation.
Right. Thanks, Brian.
No, thank you. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye.
And that was Andre. Next up, I have Cedric Holmstedt, an artist out of Minnesota. Guys, follow me at BRYAIELLO on Twitter. The website's brianayellow.com. I really appreciate you listening. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.